All right, now joining us, we got Mike Nicastro, friend of the show, been on a bunch of times. You guys might recognize him from maybe seen him on Twitter. Okay, JJ Watt kind of came after him a little bit. Saw that and definitely noticed that. Mike, how you been, man? Good to have you on.
Appreciate it. Yeah, my 15 seconds of fame, if you will. That was a pretty cool moment. It must have been a slow news day in Pittsburgh because media was picking that up, running with it. I'm like, come on, guys! Like something else had to happen in Pittsburgh today. Other local tweeter gets shouted out by JJ Watt for lack of terrible towel expertise. So
Yeah.
that was funny. That was my 15 seconds for
I
sure.
mean, you were on channel 2, 4, 11. You were on all of them. It was funny to see for sure.
Ken Rice shouting me out.
Yeah, it was good, but Mike, let's not waste any time here. I know they're 6-3. I know, like we talked about this before we even started, right? They're 6-3. They're winning. I shouldn't be at this like upset, right? I know Mike Tomlin's doing a hell of a job coaching. They're winning games. It's not college where style points matter, but I made the argument in my opening rant. Aren't we kind of lying to ourselves right now? Like Kenny's just, to me, he's not the guy. And if that pass, that backwards pass, is called correctly, that is a swing pass turned turnover touchdown away from a disaster of a game. I mean, we're stubborn with Matt Canada? I know we're winning, but isn't it kind of important how? Like, when does enough become enough?
Yeah. First of all, even when you say 6-3, it still blows my mind, as I'm sure it does for you guys too. If you would have came to me before the season and said, "All right, Mike, the Steelers are going to play 9 games. They're going to be outgained in every single one of them. Kenny Pickett is going to regress. The secondary is going to be one of the worst in the league, and they're going to allow the most rushing yards, bottom half of any team. What would the record be? I probably would have said they'd be lucky to win a game, it's just astounding that they're 6-3. And I think a lot of credit goes to Mike Tomlin there. But to answer your question directly, I think what we're seeing is just we're living in the moment a little too much. Steelers fans and analysts and everybody tends to do this, which is why your point is completely valid. After a win, we kind of just ignore all the bad things that happen, right? And after a loss, the world is falling apart and everybody should be fired. And this is the worst franchise of all time. So I think what you're seeing right now is all of this is just kind of being masked by the fact they won back-to-back games. But they beat two teams that they should have darn well beat. Like the Titans and the Packers are extremely mid, as the kids say these days.
Yeah.
Those are teams that you have to handle. But, I mean, listen, I totally agree with you. I think what's going to happen these next couple weeks, you're going to see an absolute 180 again, because I don't think they're going to beat the Browns or the Bengals. I haven't put it out there just yet, but I think they go 0-2 in these games against, teams that they're underdogs against that are, quite frankly, better than them in all honesty. And then I think before you know it, they head to and listen, Deshaun Watson's health pending. I get that might be PJ Walker. We'll see what happens there, but I don't trust them to win either of those two games. But I think nothing has changed for me. Right, this is a 9-8, 10-7 team with problems at quarterback, with problems at coordinator, with a defense with a lot of holes, and a team that can beat the Titans. Sure, right, a team that can beat the Packers. Yeah, they should. But a team that has no chance of competing with the likes of the Kansas City Chiefs, right, in the AFC, and that's the benchmark. You want to be the best team in the conference when you're the Pittsburgh Steelers. You don't want to be, okay, here's my standard. It's making making the playoffs as a wild card. They'll get the break speed off of them by the best teams generally. I know they beat the Ravens, and that's what everybody tells me when I say that they're not one of the elites. But I don't see much changing from last year, the way that they played the Bills and the Eagles when they lost like 38-3 in both of those games. I think that's the type of game you could see if this team does get in the playoffs and has to play a top seed. A game similar to Big Ben's last year when they snuck in and played the Chiefs and the Chiefs curb stomped them.
Yep.
So I don't know, man, at this point, unless Kenny somehow turns into this juggernaut of a stats machine, and I don't know how they can hang with the elites of the elites. And at the end of the season, nobody's takeaway is going to be like, hoorah, this team found a way to get it done. It's going to be, there's still questions at the quarterback position, and why are we still stuck in purgatory?
Right. I mean, the standard's different. Tomlin says the standard's the standard. Well, it's like yeah, that's why people are like, oh, why are you all upset about they're 6-3? Like, why are you upset? Because the standard's not being 6-3. The standard's winning playoff games, and we know that this roster, as currently constituted, is not able to compete. And I'm happy you mentioned the Chiefs because for years Alex Smith got to the playoffs. He was a solid B to B plus quarterback. Got to the playoffs. Andy Reid said, "We're lying to ourselves. We need to upgrade." So it's like, do you go get a Mahomes? Obviously, you gotta hit on a quarterback, but it's like this just doesn't feel like it's it to me. So you mentioned Jaylen Warren, right? What's your take on him getting fined for just being a football player? Like he's getting repeatedly fined for just being on the field. It feels like the officiating to me has gone downhill, and now it seems like the league offices are going downhill. I don't really know what to make of it. What's your take there?
Dude, it's bleeping ridiculous. What is a player supposed to do when he's running as fast as he can? You can't really see. You don't have peripherals anyways, right? And players obviously are diving at all angles around you. It's ridiculous, and it's even more ridiculous when you consider the fact that this is a guy who's bringing in like $800K this year.
Yeah.
And listen, I know for I would be parading down the street naked right now if I was bringing $800K, but it's a little different, right? For a guy that's playing with, multimillionaires around him who get a $50,000 fine and they're like, ha, whatever, pull it out of their back pocket change. Jaylen, that money means a lot to him, to his family. Like, in all seriousness, that's a lot of money. I mean, you're talking a 16th of a paycheck. So it's not just, he doesn't laugh at it when we bring it up. He gets a little ticked off at it. And if you're watching this, we do host a Jaylen Warren show Tuesday over the Sick Podcast. Steelers Crazy. You can find it on YouTube, but it's sickening. There's a lot that I think is just evolving. We've gone too far, even in terms of hitting the quarterback. That's another thing, no question about it. I think, man, we might look back in 10 years and these quarterbacks might be wearing flags, right? You're going to be ripping a red flag to get them down because, you can't. There's like a 4-inch radius where you can hit them now at this point where it's not flagged.
And even there, you still can't land on them.
You want to protect them. You still can't put your weight down on them, which is
that's
really
the dumbest thing I've ever
anyway,
heard.
because it's literally called a tackle. Like that's what the point of that's the definition of a tackle.
Is that not what football was built around?
And so that doesn't make sense, dude. It's literally what football was built around. And I get it. Like those are the guys you want to keep healthy. They bring in the big bucks. They get the big ratings. But at the same time, you have to allow these defenders to play football, and you have to allow these running backs to play football. And putting your head down while running a football is American as apple pie, man. They've been doing that since 1900s. Let a running back put his head down and engage.
Yeah, lower the shoulder, right?
When running the ball.
Yeah,
I always say this, man. Like, and I understand player safety is very important, but football is a choice, right? Nobody is forcing somebody to go play football. Right? Like you could just say, hey, if you don't want to risk injury, guess what? You say, okay, you know what? Let me go be a scout.
Yeah. Let
me go be a banker. Let me go be a podcaster. You're not forced to play in this sport, right?
Yeah.
So there's it's like saying, oh, this guy got hit a little too hard in UFC. Well, he signed up for a cage match.
Yeah, like that kind of comes with the territory, and it's just because the NFL, they don't want to write another $1 billion check for this whole CTE thing. But I thought that whole lawsuit was kind of crazy anyway, considering, again, like you said, the players signed up for it. Like you knew what you were getting into. But I don't know. Who to you has been the most impressive player up to this point that you kind of didn't expect? I don't want to say I would go Joey Porter. I guess I kind of expected it. I thought he was a first-round level talent. I guess technically we get him at 32 in the second round. So that wasn't shocking to me, but I think he's been one of the most impressive players and the lone bright spot in that secondary.
It's a great answer. Definitely one of the first names that popped into my mind. And so I'll pivot a little bit. You like how I did that. And I'll go with Keanu Benton.
I knew you were going to say Keanu Benton. He had a great game against the Packers.
Great game against the Packers. Another rookie who was thrown into the fire a little earlier than Porter and Broderick Jones, but he just has all the makings of the next great Steelers defensive lineman. He's athletic. Obviously he's not just a run stuffer, but he can move a little bit, can get to the quarterback. He's smart. He's agile. He's somebody who's just going to have a really long career. And he's also a very understated guy. Like, I don't even think I've heard 2 words from Keanu Benton all season on any podcast or media platform or anything of that nature. So he kind of has that like that lunch pail mentality where he's just putting his hard hat on and going to work. So no wonder Pittsburgh was attracted to him in the draft. And he gets to learn from the guys like Cam Hayward and Larry Ogunjobi. So he's just going to continue to develop, and it speaks to the larger point that Omar Khan's draft class right now. You could say what you want about his free agent class because I don't think it's been perfect by any means, but his draft class, it looks like a grand slam, man. Bill Mazeroski Game 7 walk-off home run right now.
Yeah, no, and people talk about draft class versus free agent class. It's actually weird. More draft picks hit than free agents. Like it's tough to hit free agents, and you don't think of it that way. But it's a very small amount of free agents that come in and make a huge impact. It's tough.
That's a good point. I guess it means nobody really wants those guys in the first place.
Or yeah, there's a reason.
But
right, there's a reason.
Right.
Yeah. No, I agree. Mike, I'm looking at a ton of these teams playing 10, 11 personnel, lots of motion. They're clever. I'm watching Miami's got like a sweep, read option, RPO. They got like 4 options on one side of the field, and they're like all open. Two is like, which one's the best of the great options? It doesn't seem that difficult. Maybe you don't implement Tyreek Hill level Jalen Waddle stuff with Tua, who's hyper accurate. Maybe we're not at that level. But can we... You can't look at anything and implement any of this. You can't implement any motion, any clever, any options. Like, I feel like it can't be that difficult to get some clever in this offense. Is it a personnel issue, or is it purely Matt Canada?
Yeah, there's something going on here, and there's 2 sides of the coin. One side of the coin is either Matt Canada and the Steelers coaches don't trust Kenny Pickett and don't actually have faith in their own quarterback, or Kenny Pickett doesn't trust Matt Canada and doesn't want to follow anything that he's saying. There's probably a little bit of both going on there, in all honesty. But he's handcuffed, right? But at the same time, is he part of the reason he's handcuffed, right? Because because of limited ability. Somebody shouted me out on Twitter the other day, and they said something that stuck out to me because everybody's been talking about its fourth quarter comebacks, which deserves to be praised. It's definitely a characteristic that will get you a long way if his play grows in the first 3 quarters. But he gets all this praise, and my guy was like, this is like literally an arsonist just coming to set a house on fire, and then he gets the fire truck and comes out and puts it out, right? The arsonist just setting his own fire and then stopping it, right? Yeah. Like, okay, you should be praised, but at the same time, like, this is the reason why you're behind in the first place, is because you just went 10 for 13 for 84 yards for the 13th consecutive game.
Thank you.
And this is coming from a guy who was in on Pickett for a little bit, at least in terms of being capable, maybe top 15 start in the NFL. But I think, honestly, if I had to bet, I think Matt Canada is quite aware he's not working with Tua Tagovailoa, right? You mentioned some of these quarterbacks on these teams that he's not working with, Patrick Mahomes, of course, by any means, not even Joe Burrow, not, probably not even a Kirk Cousins, right, at this point, unfortunately. So I think that, and I've noticed the same thing. They call the game like they have Duck Hodges playing. Like, it's a 4th-string guy who just came off the practice squad. You watch some of these games, like, do you remember, like, the Ben DiNucci Cowboys game a couple years ago?
Yeah, it was screen passes, handoffs.
It just looks, here's an example.
There's no trust.
There's no trust, Luke. And think about Tommy DeVito with the Giants. When I watched him throw, like, the plays they throw for him are like, all right, we've got 3 plays for you. There's this little curl, there's this little out, and then every other time dump it to Saquon Barkley. Like, okay, I get it to a degree. He was an undrafted rookie playing in his first games. But the Steelers call the games like that for a first-round pick with 5 years of college experience in his second year. I think a big part of them is afraid that he will fail. And, I don't know. We'll see what that leads to. But at least let him try, right?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting you brought up Kirk Cousins. We went to the Packers game.
We were walking out of the
stadium. We were at that game Sunday, and I'm walking out there, and I was like, I wonder what Kirk would be like in Pittsburgh. Like, because you think it's crazy, but it's like, are we going to just draft? We're going to be drafting, 18th again? So what, are we going to go get, I don't know, Jordan Travis? Like, we're going to try to run this back with another rookie quarterback? I mean, Kirk,
got bad news.
You're telling me Kirk wouldn't win?
I got bad news.
They're not going to move off.
They're not moving on from Kenny Pickett.
No, I know, but they should.
Too prideful. He'll be here until the end of his rookie contract. And if it goes at this rate, I don't think he'll get picked up. But there is people were talking left and right, like, what do the Steelers do? A quarterback next year? who's the next guy. There is no chance. This organization is too prideful.
They're too loyal. Yep.
Mike Tomlin's running around. This is my guy. Kenny Mother bleeping Pickett after games, screaming it. There is 0% chance that they're just like, all right, we're moving on from him. They're too prideful.
You're probably right. You're probably right. I mean, I think we agree that he's probably not the guy unless there is a 180 turnaround. I think we agree on that. So you mentioned the Browns game, obviously the Bengals game the week after that. What are your keys to win this week? I know you said you mentioned Browns probably. That's your side. But if the Steelers were to win, what are your keys to victory? Maybe on both sides of the ball, and then call your shot. Maybe it's a betting line, a score, whatever. What do you think happens this weekend?
Yeah, I think the Steelers probably should have lost to the Browns the first time they played them.
100%. I agree.
At home in week 2, that Monday night game, that was phenomenal. I mean, if they obviously lose that game if they don't score 2 defensive touchdowns. That first play of the game, Alex Highsmith gets the pick, and then towards the end, he forces the fumble. TJ Watt scores, which is just an awesome moment, maybe the best of the year so far. But the Browns are better in the trenches, which gives them a huge advantage, even though they've dealt with some injuries up front. I think the one, I guess, big factor still is that we're not sure if Deshaun Watson's going to play. It sounds like he's going to play, but he had an ankle injury last game that has him with a questionable tag now. To be honest, I don't know how much of a difference it would make anyway. They played fine with P.J. Walker in there. They're going to be obviously feeling really good about themselves coming off of that insane victory against the Ravens. So I think one key for the Steelers here is to hopefully, and a name we haven't mentioned, is hopefully get Pat Freiermuth back. If they get Pat Freiermuth back, they can use the middle of the field for once in their lives, right? And they could, and we talked about how much Deontay Johnson returning opens things up for George Pickens, and vice versa, which it kind of hasn't anyway since he's got back, but you get the point. But Pat Freiermuth returning opens things up for both of those guys too on the outside because. Listen, let's keep it real. Nobody's fearful of Connor Hayward.
No.
Over the middle of the field, they're just not. So if he can come back, I remember what he did in Cleveland a couple years ago when they won that game on the road in a low scoring contest. Ben hit him in the corner of the end zone for a touchdown, for the game winning touchdown. I think working in the middle of the field, having Pat Freiermuth, if he is there, continuing obviously to run the ball. That's at this point that's who you are. That's your identity as a team. You run the ball. You keep it close and play opportunistic defense, and then you hope Kenny makes 3 or 4 big plays in the clutch, which he has. I just think that, you can get away with a lot of what he's done against the Titans and the Packers, right? You just can. You're not going to get away with that against good teams, especially on the road.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't have a lot of faith that they go into Cleveland. And win. I think there's probably a better chance they take down Cleveland than Cincinnati because that's going to be a hungry team in 2 weeks that are playing for their lives at this point after that loss to the Texans. But I'm going to say another low scoring slugfest defensive battle because it's the only way the Steelers can win at this point. But I'm going to go somewhere along the lines of like 20-16 Cleveland, which I think would be a Browns cover, I want to say. Is it like 4?
It's 4 right now, so it'd be a push. That's what I was going to say. In terms of betting lines, I would probably lean Pittsburgh getting 4 on the road divisional game. I'd probably lean the +4. I'd love for that to go to 4.5. I think if we get Deshaun without a questionable tag, I feel like it will get bet up to 4.5. But if it does, I love 4.5. But we'll
take
see.
the Steelers. They're always good to
especially as a dog.
Keep it close.
Yeah, I do think they lose though. I think they lose by 3. I'll go like 16-13 again. Slugfest. Probably going to be cold, windy. Yeah, I know. I think we're on the same page.
Yeah,
Mike, always a pleasure. You're always so tied in. Hey, have fun on that Jalen Warren show. You're doing great things. Yup, absolutely. Keep doing your thing, and we'll talk soon.
Yeah, no doubt. I'll give you guys a shout out on one of these shows coming up for sure. I appreciate you guys.
Appreciate it, buddy. Thank you.
Yep.